And good morning to everybody. We are live, and catching all of you today on Happy KK Day. Vernon, how are you doing on this glorious day where we remember our father of the nation, our freedom fighter? Everyone always says who's the new father of the nation. We always actually, because everyone always thinks it's a former president who's the father of the nation. Actually, people, the father of the nation is a single figure. Okay, this father of the nation started with Father Abraham. There was never a father of the nation afterwards. He was the father of the nation. This is the father of our nation, and that's it. I know that everyone is currently saying the current father of the nation. I'm not mentioning any names, but that's not the father of the nation. There's one father of the nation, people. But yes, but how are you doing today on KK Day?
I'm doing all right. I think we are on to a wonderful start of a weekend. I don't know how things are looking on your side of the countryside.
450 million kwacha worth of a start to the weekend. We'll see how the
Hmm.
Zambian people play this one out. 13,000 Zambians have received 450,000, sorry, 450 million kwacha, not 450,000, 450 million kwacha. 13,000 Zambians. I was actually getting some reports, Vernon, that some people were getting their money as fast as 24 hours, that they were making their claims, and within 24 hours they've actually been receiving it. The ones who've been able to do it online, once they've actually, and if you do it through your bank, you can actually do some of these claims through your bank actually, and your bank can
Okay.
sort it out in a few minutes. Literally, like some people, okay, but those are maybe high ranking people who've gotten it like within an hour, but some people have gotten it within 24 hours. So there is actual traction here. This is how the money is moving out. And the reality is that some of these, remember that NAPSA has bank accounts with institutions. Okay, so wherever your bank is, all they have to do is just verify your amount, which they've already got on their system. So once you make
Mhm.
your claim, all they look and ask is, okay, where's your bank account? It's here. Okay, so now which bank account are we in? Do we have deposits in that bank? Yes. So just move it from that account to that account. That's literally what they're doing. You know that.
Yes, yes. Actually, it's
They're
even
literally
easy, and I think this is how they've been able to push out all of the monies as quickly as possible, and people are always happy. Though some are saying that that the whole procedure is rather frustrating, but we've seen most of them actually claiming and walking out of that,
that is
bags
the
happy.
unbanked. Vernon.
Mm.
Those are the unbanked. Mabwanas who are banked are getting their money fast. In fact, let me tell you something. This should be a what's it? This should be an encouragement to people to get their bank accounts. That's
Mhm.
actually what this should be, because those who don't have bank accounts, they're the ones who are actually struggling. Sorry, the number, Vernon, is 491 million kwacha paid out to 13,223 Zambians. There are 13,223 Zambians who have gotten 491. That's an average of 37,000 kwacha. So today we are going to talk about where are the best three places you can take your newfound wealth if you haven't already eaten it. Okay, people, you can't be this fast. It's been 10 days. In 10 days, if you've chewed this money, then I don't know. I can't help you, bro. If you can chew through 40,000, 40 pin in 10 days, then what can we do for you? You,
I
you
don't know.
can't be
I
helped.
don't know. It's the excitement for me with the Zambian people. It's just outrageous.
So this is the issues that are, the thing is, the people who are the most frustrated are the ones who are queuing up. The ones who are the least frustrated are the ones who are doing it online, and especially the ones who are doing it through their bank. You know that even the banks have set up tents there, Vernon. I want to actually share. I'm gonna actually share later my experience, because I was actually on ground zero yesterday at NAPSA, at the NAPSA HQ at Levy Junction, just to see what was actually happening. And my goodness, Vernon, it was interesting to see all those people queued up, or let's say posted up. Like as I said, there were tents there. It's almost like a fanfare happening there. It's actually like, you know, when you've been to the agricultural show, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, so that's pretty much what was happening there. What's happening there? It's a quick show off, and once we actually get this thing live and showing, I'll actually share it with as many of you as possible. So this is me yesterday, Vernon, just to share it to the people there. This is me doing what I call citizens journalism for all of you Zambian people of what I was actually seeing yesterday at NAP. So just tell me if you can actually hear it. But this is what was going on. Welcome, welcome, people. This is NAPSA. This is NAPSA HQ. As you can see, it's like a fanfare here. It's wild. This is what money does to our people. So as you can see that side, the queues are intense. The queues are intense. I don't know if you could hear the sound or you could hear the commentary.
Yes, yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes, we
okay.
did.
So I wasn't joking when I said it as well. That was just me catching a little narrow angle of what I could tell you of my citizens journalism.
You did well.
Um,
You did well to be
but
on the ground.
as I said, that's what money does to our people. Yeah, no, but what I'm saying is the queues. So the banks have even set up tents there. As you could see, there were banking tents right there that people were actually
Mhm.
trying to now get into, mobile tents, everything, to try and get people to get their money as fast as possible. The banking sector is actually stepping in to try and help. So this is just some information to try and give you people a roundup of what's happening. Now, Vernon, let's get quickly into the markets today. We've got a few things to go through. One, we've got to get through the basic market roundup. We've got to get through an inflation read, a bit more on business essentials, and then we will give you the three things that I advise as many of you to do with your NAPSA money to make Zambia move in a progressive direction and to help us all benefit from where the future is going. People, this was money for the future. So my advice is use it to better your future. If you use it to only deal with now, and I'm not saying you can't, but if it's not aimed at improving tomorrow, okay, if it's not aimed at that, then unfortunately your tomorrow will still be shoddy and shaky, and we'll have a really tough time of it. But let's get into the markets today as we get through our Futuristic Friday Business Essentials, 28th of April. Roundup is showing, Vernon, that as we've seen on the markets, we've seen that the Kwacha was the Kwacha weekend again, 0.3% up on the dollar, 1.59% in the last 7 days. And year to date now, the dollar is down 1.89%. So the losses it was incurring, it's starting to claw back. We did see that the stock market stayed flat at about 8,018 kwacha, 8,018 index score, up 9.2% from the year. The bond index jumped 1.07% on the year. That was actually quite strong. Bond index jumped quite strong, 1.07%. And we did see that in dollars, it was up 0.72%, pushing the interest rates down below 24 for the first time in a while now. 52 basis points downwards movement in our bond yields yesterday. It was quite a strong buy up in the secondary market yesterday. You know, we've been seeing a lot of trading in the bond market on the secondary sector. So it does seem like people are buying up bonds from our market right now. But it's not pushing our exchange rate up, so we're not sure whether it's offshore buyers yet. We did see yesterday, as we said, we did see that the rand moved up 1.05%. That's going to put a little bit of inflation pressure onto the system. We did see that the US dollar closed at 17.7556, down 16.49 on the month. So this month has been one of the worst performing for the dollar, down 16%. All the gains that it had year to date were wiped out by this single month, and I think just one part of at the end of March. So you can see that it has been that, but you've seen that there has been a recovery up in terms of the dollar itself as an asset. In terms of bonds, you could see that little spike that took place yesterday on the GRZ bond index, especially on the secondary market. That pushed it up 1.07%. So bonds are up 9.14% year to date. They've now starting to catch up with the stock market. And you're also seeing that in terms of dollars, bonds are up 11.24%. You saw interest rates drop for the first time below since mid-March. Since mid-March, interest rates have been above 24. Since beginning of March, interest rates have been above 24, and they've dropped back below 24 now since the beginning of March. So since March, April, we've had interest rates above, and just took a little bond buying that took that back down. We have seen that commodities prices yesterday. We did see that copper pushed up 0.11%, while oil was back up just above 78. It was trading at 77 yesterday, while gold pushed back down. So year to date, copper is up 2.16%, oil down 9.13%, and we're seeing also gold still up 9.05% in US dollars. But then when we turn the tables around in Kwacha, we're looking at our wealth insurance asset. Cryptocurrency, which raised 3% yesterday, dropped again 1.9%. This is why I keep telling you people, Bitcoin is not an easy thing to put your wealth in. You will have BP, people. This is how this thing gives you. You will have BP if you're not careful. So it was down 1.9% yesterday after going up 3.1, up 71% on the year to date. Ethereum down 2.5% in Kwacha and up 5.4, up 54.8% year to date, while gold was down 0.34% in Kwacha, up 6.99%. It was both the drop in the Kwacha and the drop in gold that pushed it down to 0.34%. Now, looking at where we are on our total wealth spectrum, you can see bonds are now up at 9.1%, 9.3% on the stock market. A loss of 1.9% year to date in the US dollar market. Gold up 7%. Bitcoin up 71.7% and Ethereum up 54.8%. As I said, people, you trade Ethereum and Bitcoin as your full portfolio at your own peril, my friend, because that is an amount of volatility I'm not sure you're willing to take in. Now, if you have that strong volatility, if you have that strong of a heart to deal with it, go ahead. But I'm just telling you, it's only the strong. If you stick to the 9%, people, stick to the 9s and the 3%, and you'll be fine, people, and you'll be fine. It's when you try and go out of your league where things now start to wire you. But you've been warned. If you choose to not go the right way, that's your own problem. Now, this is where we're going in terms of oil prices. We have seen, Vernon, that in terms of oil at the pump, we did see we're expecting about 4.53% decline in prices at the end of this period. We're going to get the announcement at the end of on Sunday by the Energy Regulation Board. That's when we're expecting the announcement. So for the 1st of May, we should be expecting 26.34. This is our expectation. Obviously, it's based on a lot of our math, but there are other factors that the ARB may be privy to. But this is our projection of what we see prices down. Now, we are projecting that prices should push down by the end of this month. Now, let's go into one little deep dive, one news story before we get into our deep dive of inflation today. Yesterday, Vernon, we did see that the launch of what we call the delivery unit, yet another section of the government invented for us. But anyway, I think what the president was trying to push at was he was saying that he wants to make sure that everybody is delivering on what their promises are. We don't want to see people just holding positions. And he says, look, I'm tired of swearing in people. I want to make sure that there's actual performance in the government. So I understand where he's coming from. He's coming from a private sector perspective of trying to make sure that everyone has deliverables and they are working according to their deliverables. Now, obviously, inventing a new department of government to make sure that deliverables are delivered on, and then that entity is going to have a deliverable unit to also monitor it, which will then, it's like a Russian nesting doll when it comes to government. But he did actually say, look, people, let's make sure that when you are there, there's an actual impact. Now, Vernon, there was an interesting statement that he did have yesterday, and I'm going to share it. This was a little clip from yesterday where he talked about what to do. Obviously, this is from the other newscaster, but I'm just going to have to share it quickly because this is a little clip where they have him talking about government cars. I applaud it. I know some people can say they don't. Good for them, because people in this country just like big cars. Tough. These people need to stop. So this is a statement. Sorry, Vernon, your mic is on mute. These people need to be put in check. But here's a clip from yesterday's. Yeah, this is a clip from yesterday's meeting.
Cutting down public expenditure, the president wants all high-value vehicles that were bought after assuming office in 2021 sold and invested in productive sectors.
We agree that expenditure extravagance is not part of us. What do I say? You are still applying to buy new VXs. Secretary Cabinet, anyone who has born a VX in central government, in local government, in quasi-government institutions. I would like an instruction which will be followed up to bring out those VXs, put them in the market and sell them.
Listen, this is where what's that song? Was it sung by Sarkodie? Where the song, I think the title is Hallelujah. That's the song that I'll start playing. Where everybody sing
It's funny, and
Hallelujah.
you see, and it's these times where you actually see now people now resisting change when they actually, in the first place, agreed to change. You know, it's now trickling
Mhm.
down your expenditure, lowering your cost, but now they want to still maintain the same, kind of lavishing, luxurious style of life, but they don't want to change. I'm for the idea.
Yeah. The problem is that what we do is we often make our elites, we make our politicians live lavish lifestyles as if they're corporate executives and entrepreneurs. The problem I've actually seen is that people in politics want to live like they've built businesses. They want to live the lifestyle of a person who has built a successful business. The people out there who have built successful businesses and have built the lifestyle that they have they've worked tireless nights for it. They've had to sweat for it. Okay. They had to create something. They had to take enormous amounts of risk. Yes, you won an election. Good for you. But that doesn't entitle you to start chewing tax money like it's yours. It's not. You take that money at literal gunpoint. Okay. They are threats to people if they do not adhere. That is the reality. There's an actual legal sanction pulled on someone. Vernon, we have a show here. We have shows here on Money FM. We don't go to people's houses and tell them if you don't watch Money FM, you're going to be arrested or you're going to be fined or things are going to be taken from you. We don't tell them that. They have a choice to listen to Money FM or not. They have a choice to watch or listen to Behind the Markets or not. We have to convince them, make a case to them, and get them to voluntarily listen to the show. So when if we succeed and we build lifestyles and the business that's owned here and they build a lifestyle for themselves based on the success of the station, well then they have deserved it. Okay, because they took risks. Now my problem is that those who get elected into office do not have that you don't have that luxury. It's not up to you to start living that lifestyle. This is not for you to live the best life that you've ever had. And this is, this people may not like what I'm about to say, Vernon, but this is my problem with I believe when you're young, you need to be economically productive. I'm being honest with
Yeah.
you. I don't think when you're young, you should be that politically active. I will support, and I'm not going to joke about this. I do support young politicians going in. Okay. That's just an allegiance that I have to them. But I really struggle with the effect I've seen politics having on young people. They turn into cultural bureaucrats who start to lavish off money. And instead of going out into society and becoming actual business people, they want to live like their friends who own businesses while in government. That's the problem I've seen when people go into politics young. It taints them. The culture of politics gets a hold of them. Later on in that speech, the president even said, but some of you guys who are young PSs and MPs, why are you acting like these other guys? He actually asked them, he said, but why are you acting like them? You're the ones who are supposed to come in and change things, but you've already started shaking hands with these people and behaving like them. This is the problem, and this is why this was an issue I have. So yes, some people are saying no, he tries to sell those cars, good, liquidate them. It's better. They're not useful. Half of these things, you know what people don't understand about the car? It's not about you bought it at this much and you sell it for a lower price. It's the cost of maintaining those things. You have to put fuel in those things. Okay, those are expensive cars to maintain, not expensive cars just to buy. People, the cost of owning something is not just the cost of acquiring it. It's the cost of insuring it. It's the cost of operating it. It's the cost of maintaining it and having to take it for servicing. It's the cost of replacing it. It's the cost of securing it. Okay. There are 5 costs considered when you own something. Whenever you're going to buy something, I want you people to start thinking about this. If you go to a shop to buy a laptop, to buy a phone, to buy anything, I want you to I want you to look that thing straight and say, can I insure it? Can I maintain it? If it gets broken, can I fix it? If this thing needs to be protected from theft, fire, and anything, can I protect it? Can I secure it? Can I carry it around in a secure fashion? Ask those questions. Okay, it's the same problem guys have when they want to date someone. Yes, you can take her on one date, but can you maintain? Those are the questions. Are you able to maintain? I've seen guys, Brennan, sweating under the pressure of trying to maintain girlfriends they can't
Oh, no,
manage.
that's very true. Actually, I think it's easy to get a girl, but keeping her or getting yourself into a relationship is easy. But keeping yourself and maintaining the relationship in a good state, that's the challenge.
Mhm. Yeah. So I think that to me is a very important thing. Can you maintain this thing that you want to acquire? If you want to buy a car, can you maintain it? So it's not just about you can make a loss. You can, yes, we bought the car for 1.5 and now we have to sell it for 1. It's a loss of 500. Now, let's take on the continuous costs of putting fuel in that car versus a cheaper car. Let's take on the continuous cost of insuring that car. Let's take on the continuous cost of fixing that car and fixing it from wear and tear. You'll notice that that 500 is worth it. That's why sometimes you sell things because you can't manage keeping them. These things are a cost on the system. I hope they also go after those nonsensical vehicles that these guys bought at CDF. I really hope they go after those things as well. Those things need to go. I don't know who told people that we should be doing such things, okay, as a country. And he's got a point. We are at the moment trying to restructure our debt. Why are we doing such things? Day one, you start trying to buy yourself vehicles. No, sort your own life. If you want to buy a nice car, go and do it with your own money. Go and save up your own money and go and buy it yourself. Okay? Don't make the taxpayer do it for you. Don't make the government do it for you because you know you can't generate that kind of income by yourself. If you know you can't, buy what you can. That's what you need to do. Don't invent, and this
It
is what a
was
lot of people
some
in the
sort of
office do. They invent
um,
lifestyles for themselves
it,
using public funds.
it is some sort of a tradition. You come into government with your people, you buy yourself some car, just some something to show that now you're in power, and like you say, trying to live a lifestyle like you've made it in life, you have a successful life and career, and you want to buy yourselves good and wonderful cars that you'll be enjoying. I think from there, the narrative of serving people is distorted, and now you're about being comfortable first before you can engage others. I think that is where a lot of politicians miss it. It's about serving the people. You get paid or you get whatever reward as a politician, and not trying to make a successful life out of politics. And this is why the precipitation of stealing and corruption in government and by government officials keeps on increasing and will never stop if people and politicians in particular are going to keep on this narrative and this kind of mentality.
You know, Vernon, I'll say it to you this way. I used to have a friend when I was in school. These dudes were rich. Okay, they were rich. The guy's father would buy. He had 3 sons, and whenever his children turned 21, the tradition is he would buy them the Mercedes Benz of that year, not the second hand. No, no, no.
The latest at the time.
Whatever the Benz is for that year, that son gets it. Okay, that's what he would do. That was his tradition. But he did that with his money. That's the difference. I had no problem with him doing that. He was doing that with his money. He ran a successful business in the minerals industry, and he therefore had the money to do that for his son. He was a multi-millionaire. I had another friend, they obviously do these are not our people. These are not our people. I'm just telling you the truth. These are not our people. His father would take his father. I remember when we're doing like fundraising for our hostel, for our house in college, is his father would sponsor as part of the raffle, the annual raffle for fundraising. His father would sponsor a plane ride, not a plane ride, sorry, a helicopter ride through wildlife. Like whoever won it would get a free helicopter ride, them and their friends, and you'd take them out. Dude had that kind of money, okay, but that was his money. That's the point I'm trying to drive at here. Ain't no problem owning fancy cars. There's no issue with that. Just do it with your own money. Sweat for it yourself. Don't make someone else sweat for it. Take it off them and then get entitled to it. No, sweat for that money yourself by sitting down, creating products, creating businesses, or creating value. Create value in society where we opt to give you our money because we see it's the best place for it to go. It serves a need or a desire that we have in our heart. We pay you for it. I don't care about rich people who run businesses living the lives they do. I got no issue with that. I take no issue with that. You've earned that living and you've earned that lifestyle, and you have a right to that lifestyle because that's your decisions and your choices, your hard work. Okay? Whatever it is between you and God, that's another story. that's between you and God. That's another story. How you live your life, that's between you and God. But the things you own from the money you make, as long as you don't put a gun to somebody, as long as you don't extort the system, fair play, lots of money, you deserve it. Okay. Now, if you choose to burn through your money and you finish it, that's also what you deserve, by the way. That's also what you deserve. So that's your choice in life, not mine. Don't bring that to me if it all goes wrong. But the point I'm just trying to drive at, Vernon, is we shouldn't have people. You know why I'm saying this? In 2014, when we did the labor force survey in this country, that was the first time we actually did how much each person is getting paid, the average salary per sector or per type of employer. Do you know what was discovered, Vernon? The highest paid people in this country work for NGOs. The second highest paid people in this country work for government. Private sector was at the bottom. How do you run an economy where the public sector is earning more than the private sector? Do you know what ends up happening? The most talented individuals end up going from the productive sectors of the economy to the unproductive sectors of the economy. The best analysts, the best administrators, the best finance people, they're all working at NGOs and government instead of working in the private sector where they could grow the economy. This is why we're struggling to create jobs, because the most productive and talented minds of this country are either outside the country or working for the unproductive sectors of this country. And that has to be fixed. And that's because we've created the most lavish lives in the government. You want to own a car? Best way to do it is go and work for the government. You want to own a plot for cheap? Best way to go and do it is to work for the government. You cannot put that many perks. I believe that public service should always be pegged at private sector. It should always be pegged at private sector to ensure that the growth of this country always has the most talented people. Because even, what's his name? Adam Smith said in The Wealth of a Nation, so the wealth of a nation is found in its people. If the people are in the most productive places, if the people are doing the most productive things, the nation is becoming wealthier. So if the greatest incentives, and remember this, Vernon, desire, behavior, motivation, it follows incentives. Okay, it follows beliefs and it follows incentives. Where people have the greatest incentives, I can promise you the greatest talent is going to be found there. So we have to watch out for this fact. Where are we finding people? Where are the most talented people being found? They're being found in the unproductive sectors of the economy. Okay, as opposed to the productive sectors where jobs are created. Jobs are not sustainably created in the government. I know people say there's public sector jobs, but where does the money come for those things? It comes from taxes. So if there's no private sector activity to pay taxes, where do you think those public sector jobs are going to come from? The past two presidents were there raising wages for the civil servants without seeing the economy grow. What happened? Debt. We just saw mountains of debt coming into this country, piles of it. But you see, the difference is the private sector, we create jobs without debt. That's the difference. Okay. So you want as much of your job creation coming from the private sector. Your growth should be coming from the private sector. The contributions to the economy should be coming from the private sector. Private sector must drive the economy. But you can't do that if all the incentives are sitting with the public sector, who heavily taxes the private sector and then goes on to give themselves lavish. You take their money and you put such huge incentives with their money. It's like me, Vernon. Let's say you and I are competitors. Because here's the reality. Private sector and public sector are both competing for labor. Let's say you and I are business competitors. So you are forced to pay me. Imagine this. Imagine I take your money and then I start luring away your employees with the same money that I took from you. Eventually, you have no money to give me. And we're both going to collapse. It is
Yeah.
not sustainable to do this.
Yeah.
So we have to start making sure that we rethink this model of lavish living in the public sector. So I'm happy that that step was taken. Yes, I know he talked about debt being his deliverable and he's on the phone with presidents and he's pushing that agenda. It's good, but for sustainability purposes. My problem with Zambia is this: we can be forgiven with debt and then we'll go right back to the things that put us in debt. The issue, people, in this country is not the debt. The debt is the symptom. The sickness is the way we spend public money in this country. That is the sickness. It's a sickness, Vernon. It's an actual sickness, the way we do that. And the problem is this: when the budget is being read, we all say this debt is bad. We're all talking about the exchange rate. We're talking about inflation. But when the budget speech comes out and you see spending is lower, people's reaction, oh, why is the government spending less money? And I told them right there, there's your problem. Dependency on the government to spend money to make your lives better. This is the issue. This is where the issue starts. The government should be encouraged to curb its budget, to slow its spending, to pull things back, and to do the essentials. The government needs to be brought back to doing essentials: public health, education for the poor. This is important. Okay, law and order. Having a good court system so that we can manage disputes. The rest, they just back off and say, you people need to sort yourselves out. That's the reality. The rest, society must be encouraged. It can't be the government must do things. Anyway, that's just my thought. I know that I went deep into that one, but that is something that we do need to start working on as a people, or else we're not going to get anywhere. Vernon, yesterday, I don't know if you have any thoughts before we shift into the main topic, which is inflation data.
I have always shared my sentiments, of course, with people, and I tell them the government, I don't know how you're going to do it or what way possibly could work for you, but try to picture the government out of whatever you're doing and
Yeah.
pretend this world is just about you and making it with this economy, with the current, economic environment and whatnot. Whatever business, whatever activity you want to do to get yourself in a better place financially, do it and pretend the government is not there. And then the government, when it's around, it will complement you in whatever way, but pretend you are alone. You're just in the private sector doing your own thing and just mind your own business. And this actually has been the notion. I've worked with a few NGOs, and the narrative usually is we need funding from the government to facilitate for the program ABCD. For my business to thrive and continue, I need a boost from the government through CDF and all of these CEC programs and whatnot. And you find that something you probably would have achieved by yourself at about 50% or 76% of it, you failed because of a sense of dependency on the government, a sense of entitlement, actually, that the government owes you this package. The government owes you. It's supposed to give you money. It's supposed to better your life. It's supposed to be there for you every time you need something. And this is why development with young people in the country is very slow. The guys in the previous generation are more independent. They'll do their own thing, find their money, stabilize, and move on. Life goes
That's
on
because
like that.
the
But
government is dead.
the now generation the now generation wants to be spoon fed. They want to be given information. They want to be given platforms. They want to be given money. They want to be given housing. They want everything to be put on their table. And this is why progress is very slow. When they feel the government's presence is less in whatever project, they feel like it's not going anywhere, and they feel that more of a government is going to work. There's an organization that used to run very actively during the PF regime. It was very active, all youth and whatnot, very interesting. They were planning to do an Indaba, approached the Ministry of Youth and Sports, presented it and whatnot, because they were looking for funding, and they felt with the government only they can fund that project. And when the government said, we have conditions if we're going to do that for you, and everything was outlined, they felt discouraged. And guess what? Whatever the government said, this is how we want the program to run. They bend it to those rules because they feel only with the government facilitating, then things can happen. Today, because of that sense of dependency syndrome, it is no longer functioning. That organization, if you go to their location now, they are no longer functioning. And this, of course, is a similar situation I've seen with a lot of other organizations and businesses. This is just but my thought. The government should focus on only essentials. And this is why we're failing to maintain drugs in hospitals. We're failing to maintain And
But that's the weird
it's
thing.
funny
We're
because you
doing
say
this frivolous stuff and we're
government
not doing the
is competing
essentials.
with the private sector. You know what I mean? And then it's funny because with the picture we're getting is that people everywhere in almost every sector are hungry. They don't have enough money. We see bribes, we see cases of corruption. For me, that is actually translating something for me. I don't know how hungry we are as a country. Just yesterday, I read a report of soldiers who are escorting illegally smugglers, with millimil out of the country. And I'm thinking, what kind of hunger are we facing in the country?
And Vernon, and I'll add to this before we get into the one of the breaks here, and I'll add to this, Vernon. One of the issues that you've actually raised here is the exact reason why immigrants do better in this country. It's the exact reason. Okay, immigrants do better because in their mind there is no government. There is no government to support them. There's no government to help them. I know this very well because I remember that I only came back to Zambia back in 2011. Okay. So I've been an immigrant for my whole childhood. I was an immigrant. Okay. And one thing I saw being raised in a house of immigrants is I saw the way they handle things. And I'm going to read the final paragraph from my article, which I wrote a while back, and I'm going to put it in the comments section, where I wrote why immigrants do better. I said, why do immigrants do better in our countries? For all of you who are interested, I'm going to put this in the comment section for you to be able to read it out. But it is an article on why immigrants do better in our country. And one of the things in any country, and one of the things I said is growing up in the house. And this is the final paragraph I wrote here. I said, having lived as a child of immigrants for 20 years, I watched my mother and my father focus all their attention on self-effort, self-reliance, and their own personal decisions. They never complained about the political leadership in Botswana, and anything they wanted done, they done. So anything they wanted done or done better, they did it themselves. I am sure many Zambians who grew up in Botswana can attest to a similar work ethic, and thus, lots of Zambians found ourselves living in the middle class while we were there. During our time in Botswana, I saw my father rise in his positions. I saw my mother rise in their positions. During their times, I actually saw this. I saw them rise in their respective positions and where they were. These two barely spoke about and complained about politics, yet in my time, I saw us tangibly move from the lower part of the middle class to the upper part of the middle class through their hard work and through their decisions. This is because once we were out of our country, Zambia, we had no vested interest in the politics of the country. We also recognized that there was no tribalism in Botswana. Do you know when I discovered Zambian tribes, Vernon? When I came back to Zambia, I knew what tribe I was, and I knew what some people were. I knew some languages, but I never saw out of the Zambian community, the tens of thousands of people who lived in Botswana, there was no tribalism. Whatever tribe you were, we were Zambians. That's how we were. We operated like that. If a Zambian died, regardless of who we were, we all went to that funeral. We all went and chipped in. We all went and helped. We all went and made sure that their body got back to the country. That's what we did as a group. Okay, so there was no issues of tribalism. We found Zambians that tribalism was non-existent. So my statement to the young black people who are living in our country is that the reality is simple. The excessive political involvement creates a mental reliance on government, thus impeding your personal economic progress because you will inherently think less of yourself and mentally give power to the government. Political involvement reaches a point of diminishing return, and thus you start to lose the spirit of self-reliance. Once you lose that spirit of self-reliance, you lose the capacity to innovate, to create, because the act of innovation and creation is perfected by the act of daily problem solving and natural offshoot of self-reliance. So immigrants show that self-reliance is the fastest route to economic development, while political involvement leads to stagnation and in some cases degradation. So to the young black people living in Zambia, the young black Zambians, let us learn from the immigrants around our communities and simply do for ourselves what the politicians have failed to do for us many times. I am telling you this as a personal experience. You cannot develop if you are going to be waiting for the government to do everything. If you're spending your days watching President Chidema post stuff and then commenting, post stuff and commenting and waiting for him to come to your house and bring spoons of food there, you are going to suffer. This is the reality why the Indian Zambian community have done so well. They've built from nothing. Okay, they've come to this country, they built from nothing with the expectation of nothing. That is what they've done. They've worked hard for what they've done. The Rwandese have come here and they've set up shops where you people didn't want to. You were too bougie to do it. They did it. Now they're moving to the middle class. You're jealous. Don't be. They have worked hard. They wake up at 6 in the morning, close their shops at 22. They take their kids to school themselves. They put food on the table themselves. They're not in the queues and they're not on the streets making noise. When they have issues, they sort it out as a community. So you fail to operate as a community. You fail to operate to operate individually, and then you want to start putting it onto the government. And that's why I try to say. That's why in that article I asked that question. It is not. People like to say, "Well, it's people in America who do well. It's people in these countries who do well." The reality is that it's immigrants who do well. And we'll come back on the other side of the break. We'll talk about the inflation data, and then we'll give you the 3 tips. But that was just the big conversation for today.
Alrighty, we wrap up with the last part of the session today.
Yeah, so I know that when we went into a preaching session, we went into a little.
I think
We
it's
apologize.
essential, as it may sound as harsh and strongly expressed. I think it's helpful if you try to shift your mind. And I think many people should find it resourceful and not hurtful or hurt in any way. I think if you want to progress in life, I think you should take it.
Yeah, it's something that we all need to start looking at. So, right, Vernon, just to get into some of the final parts today. Yesterday, we did have the inflation data that came out yesterday. So I'm going to give you my report on it. Yes, there's a handsome fellow there who works endlessly at night to try and give you guys this data. Yesterday, we did see that inflation went up to 10.2% for the first time, the third consecutive rise in inflation. And this is the first time we've actually seen inflation up from 10 up to 10.2%. For the first time, we've seen it above 10% in 11 months. So first time we've had a double-digit inflation read. Monthly inflation still came in hotter than expected with the second consecutive rise, and this time by a bigger margin. The main driver was non-food, which was mainly driven by transportation inflation. Milli meal prices also, Vernon, came in at a record 202 kwacha. Breakfast meal for the first time in Zambia nationally has broken through the 200 kwacha price threshold, meaning this is the highest we've ever seen breakfast meal in the history of this country. So here's the inflation reads. As you can see, it's consecutive movements. This is the third consecutive movement up. We had 9.4% inflation in January, and this is 9.6, 9.9, and all the way up to 10.2. But this is no longer base effects. This is actual inflation coming in, especially from transportation costs. But we did see, the good thing is we did see a decline in food inflation It was non-food inflation driven by transportation and really high fuel costs that have finally reverberated into the economy and have started shifting prices. We are also seeing, Vernon, here that if you look here, this is the read for total inflation. This is what I call the expectations curve. That red line in the back is what I call the expectations curve. That is the 10-month average for each of those month and monthly inflations. So what you can see is that we've broken away. Our monthly inflation for this month was higher than the monthly inflation from the previous month. The monthly inflation is lower, but it's higher than the expectation. The previous month it was lower than the expectation. This time it was higher than the expectation, and therefore we're having another issue again. You can see that food inflation also crept a little bit higher than the expectation. It was below the expectation, but it crept a little higher, so that's why we're seeing 8.7%. But the big problem that we're having right now is non-food inflation. But let's take a look at food prices. This is what we call our kitchen table index. 3.4% growth in grain prices last month alone, and a 7.8% growth in vegetable prices. So this is what's affecting on the food table. But you can see on the other side, fruit prices are down, fish prices are down, chicken prices are down, meat prices slightly moved up by 1%. So a bit of a mixed read here, but vegetable and grain were the ones which moved significantly higher. We also took a look here. Now, this is what I was talking about, Vernon. The annual inflation has been on the rise and is back in the territory where it was in June 2020. So you can see right now, annual inflation for grain prices. This is your mixture of your different mini meals, up 28.383%. So we've got 28% inflation, or what I call Inshima inflation. So Inshima inflation is actually at 20. No, literally, this is Inshima inflation. Inshima inflation is actually up 28.3%. It was negative 1.16%. In June, it was 26, but the highest it's ever been was December 2019, when it was 96.55%. We had double the price of Inshima in 1 year in December 2019. It was wild. That's how rough the problems of Zambia started before the pandemic, just to show you people. Now, similarly, breakfast meal also. This is actually breakfast meal inflation. This is the actual Nishima inflation, or as we'll say, Ubunga inflation, which has actually been pushing up. This is 25. It's at 25.28%, off the lows of 1.93% back in November 2021. So you can see that steady line movement, but it's back in the territories of June. And the highest Nishima inflation that we've had is 84.12%. So this is something we're tracking here. Alongside inflation, we're tracking Nshima inflation because we know how much it affects the livelihood of the Zambian. And I can see you, just by your eyes, Vernon, how invested you are in understanding the numbers.
It is. This is our staple meal. And if you remember recently, we had a shortage. You saw how angry people were. It's Nshima.
Hungry people are angry people. A hungry man is an angry man. So you want to make sure that the hunger is gone. That's why they even Kudichana, the South African rapper, had a song called "No More Hunger." That's how important hunger is to deal with. So you can see now, if you look at the prices of breakfast meal, this is the historic price. We've charted it back all the way back to August 2016 when it was 84 kwacha 99. That feels like such a long time ago. 84 kwacha for 25 kg in Shima. It feels like such a long time ago. But now it's at 202. So it broke past 200 kwacha for the very first time. So we're at record highs when it comes to Nchima price. So if you want to see the anger of the people, there it is. Now, the administration is going to be judged by the fact that when they walked into office, Milimil was at 132 kwacha, and currently it's at 202 kwacha. This is what they must face. Now, there are two issues driving this, people. One is that we're not producing as much as we should be. Two is that there is regional demand for our Milimil. Remember that. It's not just, that's why there's smugglers, people. So there's two things that will happen to your Milimil. I think people have to pay attention to this. When your currency gets weak, it becomes more profitable for your farmers and millers to sell Milimil outside the country. Okay, because the people outside the country are willing to pay for mini meal in dollars. So just remember that that's what's driving it. So right now, as the currency got weak, it's also been driving a lot of the people to sell the mini meal out of the country. So this year, 2022, especially at the end of 2022, we started to see the currency moving in an unfavorable position. Therefore, it drives the price of mini meal upwards. So people in DRC want to buy your mini meal. Everyone wants to buy your mini meal. This is what happens, and this is the driver. So if you want to see the stress of the country, it's two things. It's the production cost, so it's the fertilizer cost and the production cost, the low productivity, and the regional demand. These three things are converging together to create mini meal prices that have hit as high as 200 kwacha. Non-food inflation we're seeing here is about 0.57%. It does come in much higher, double. Sorry, it's 1.02%, much higher than the expectations curve, and that is primarily driven by the 3.4% month-on-month inflation in transport prices. You can see it is leaps and bounds above, and restaurant and hotel prices also came in at 1.6%. Now, the key driver of the monthly inflation coming down from 1% was mainly food prices, but you can see the influence of transport prices pushing the net change upwards. This is our net change index that we track. Where's the source of inflation coming from? You can also see in terms of annual inflation, leading the charge is transport costs, 14%. Transportation costs are up 14% higher than they were last year. And the key driver of transportation costs, of year-on-year inflation, is transport costs. They're 160% influencing the price, the higher inflation that we've seen. So it's all literally coming from transport costs, 162%. Even the food was trying to pull it down, but unfortunately, transportation costs have actually done the majority of damage. So that, I think, is the biggest thing. Now, Vernon, I have given people an oath today that I'm going to give you 3 places where you can take your NAPSA moolah, your NAPSA money. So the 3 places I would advise as many people. Remember, we talked about the 3 wealth thieves. We don't want you to eat your money, please, people. We don't want someone asking you, how did you spend your money? I ate it. We can't be hearing that from you by Tuesday. So here are 3 places of high productivity you can take your money. The first place, Vernon, you should be looking at taking your money is in your ideas. Investing your money in ideas. Take the money that you've made through your that you've gotten through your NAPSA, and ask yourself, what business ideas have I been working on? Now, if you have business ideas in your head that you haven't put into prototypes, that you haven't started trying to sell, that you haven't already started in motion, you are not going to spend that money on business ideas. Get the business idea out first before the money comes out, because your financial discipline will be your enemy on that one. So go to Y Combinator Startup School. It's online, people. I've told people multiple times, go there, start learning how to create an idea. Go to places, go to startup hubs. There are many of them in Zambia where you can start to flesh out some ideas. Collaborate with some people over the weekend. Find some like-minded people. Maybe cut the drinking buddies out of your life for the meantime, and go and sit with like-minded people in those areas who are also spitballing some ideas. Go and start doing a bit of research and getting a prototype out. Solve the actual problem. Once you've done that, then you can go and get that NAPSA money to become your kickstart, your seed funding for you to be able. So this should be seed funding. Okay, we've been talking about lack of access to capital. You people, if you don't use this properly, what argument will you have when you start saying banks are not giving us capital? So if you can't do this with your own money, so you think the banks can now trust you with theirs, you're failing to actually start your own businesses with your own NAPSA money. Then you're going to start saying, no, but banks don't give us loans. Oh, okay. So that's the first place that you can actually invest it. The second place you can invest it is in assets. So this is the time to start learning how to invest in the stock market. Start learning how to invest in GRZ bonds yourself. Building and managing your own portfolio, because by the time you retire, you need to be able to manage a financial portfolio, because your NAPSA is not going to be enough to pay your retirement. You're going to have a portfolio of properties, bonds, and stocks to give you the passive income to be able to enjoy your retirement. Okay, so that you're not stressed. So if you get into the habit of using this 20% to start learning, how do I buy stocks? How do I invest in them? What do I do? You can start doing this, and then you can now start supplementing it with your savings alongside it, so that when you get your bonuses, when you get all sorts of things, when you get your gratuity, you now have an idea of what to start doing with it. So building up your equity is a good thing to be doing with it. The third place to invest your money, Vernon, is in your education. A lot of people's jobs are changing. There is something globally happening called the great restructuring, where jobs are becoming replaced by automation, where new ways of working are happening, working from home, working online. So you cannot be stuck in your old way of working. Whether you're self-employed, whether you're an entrepreneur, you need to start figuring out how to start working in the new environment. So there are two kinds of people, Vernon, who are going to thrive in the future economy. One are called superstars, the people who are very good at what they do and they are hard to replace. Ask yourself this question: the skills I offer and the value I create, is it hard to replace? Don't lie to yourself. Be honest. If you think you are easy to replace, then become the second kind of person who will thrive. Learn the technology of your industry. If you can learn the technology, Vernon, of your industry, and you can be very good with technology, then technology will enhance your abilities. So either be very good at what you do or be very good with the technology of what you do. If you can be one of these two things, so that's why you can take that money, invest it in short courses, invest it in online trainings, start now spending on your education. If you can spend on your enterprise, your equity, and your education, if you can take the snaps of money, and then what it'll do is it'll boost your earnings capacity, then it has been money well spent. Okay. The intention of NAPSA is to this withdrawal is to help Zambians enhance themselves so that they can participate in the wealth expansion. Over the next 10 to 20 years, Vernon, Zambia is going to go through the greatest wealth expansion of its history. But only the people who are highly skilled or superstars, the people who have assets or the people who have businesses are going to benefit from Zambia going through its wealth expansion. If you are not in one of these three areas where you have assets, high skills, or equity, you are going to, sorry, assets, high skills, or entrepreneurship, you are going to have an issue. You are going to be left out of it, and then you're going to say this country is unequal, it's not fair, yada yada yada. But you got your NAPSA, you blew through it, and you didn't use it for improving those three things. So once again, Vernon, those three things: equity, entrepreneurship, education, equity. Take it to those three areas, and you have done good. And make sure that after that, your NAPSA is not going to be the thing that's going to invent your wealth. No, it's going to kickstart your journey. You follow it up by continuing to invest your time, energy, and extra money into those three things so that those three things can help you grow. You don't go and get one short course and then that's it, you're rich. No, you get one short course to introduce you into the changes and you constantly evolve in that area. You don't put your NAPSA once into equity and boom, you're a millionaire. No, you put it there, you learn how to invest, then you continue it with your savings. You don't put your NAPSA into your enterprise once and say, all right, I've created $1 million business. No, you keep running that business and you keep managing it well afterwards. It is just seed, okay? Seed can die if it's not managed properly. I have to repeat this, Vernon, because I know people will think if I just take it there, I'm going to be rich. No, stop the gambling mentality. I have to just use the clap again so that you understand. Stop the gambling mentality. Okay? Because when we clap, people know I'm serious. So what we want you to do is put the money where it can be best used for the growth of Zambia. This country is going to grow. If you want to participate in the growth, you must do things correctly. So those are the three areas I can advise as many people of what to do with it. Now, it's advice. You can take it or leave it. Okay? It's just advice.
Yep.
Right? At the end of the day, your decision can be driven by advice or driven by your desires and your emotions. You pick which one of those three. Okay? There are four things actually that drive your decisions, Vernon. Your intuition, your desires and emotions, your emotions, and advice. These are four things that drive your decisions. Okay? Four. So you pick which ones. You're only free to pick what's going to drive your decisions. You don't pick your decisions. You pick what drives them, because what drives them will get to the decision that we get. Anyway, that's the way I'm gonna leave it for there, Vernon. Happy KK Day, my brother. He fought for our freedom. The problem I have with our country is we are independent, but we're not free. Okay, so remember that they didn't fight just so that you can put people in office. They fought so that you could be free. So it's time to start living free. And freedom, Vernon, means assuming responsibility for your future. That's what it means. It doesn't just mean being free to do what you want. It means assuming responsibilities for your future so that you have the agency. Over tomorrow. and I'll